Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Day 1 Airventure 2024, and thank you for joining us for Oshkosh Live. I'm Randy Bollinger, Editorial Director of Flying Magazine, and I'm here today with Lisa DeFries, our Group President for the Aviation Group. And we're thrilled to be here at Oshkosh at Airventure with a couple 100,000 of our closest friends, so thank you for joining us for something that's very special. This is the first of its kind live broadcast, Oshkosh Live, here inside Redbird Flight Display on Knapp Street. So, Lisa, maybe we should start by telling people, what is Oshkosh Live and how did that come to be?
Yeah, absolutely, Randy. So Oshkosh Live started with the creative team from Redbird Flight and our media group. We decided we wanted to bring the Oshkosh experience to the masses. For those people that may have come but can't join this year, for those that have not been to Oshkosh before, maybe they'll put it on their bucket list for a future opportunity. And really just to bring all of the greatness that is Oshkosh to the greater community of aviation for people who love aviation.
Wonderful. And you'll find it streaming on all of our websites, Flying Mag, Plane and Pilot, Flying Magazine's Facebook page. You can't miss it if you want to follow us. So we've got some exciting things that are going to be on tap. We're going to walk you through the whole rundown for today and what to expect throughout the week. We're going to have live guests. We've got some tape segments. Wonderful, fabulous. Thanks for joining us here. But we've got a couple of guests with us right now since we are here in the Redbird studio in Redbird Flight Exhibit. So let's talk to our wonderful guests.
Yeah, right. That's right. Joining us this morning are Todd Willinger and Josh Harnagel from Redbird Flight. If you know Redbird, you know they manufacture a wide range of training devices, from desktop simulation to full motion flight simulators, and you guys supply flight schools all over the world with your training devices. Redbird has been a longtime supporter of EAA, and I believe you were one of the original founders of the Pilot Proficiency Center here on flight. So do you want to share with us some of the history about your relationship with EAA?
Well, yeah, this goes back initially, and obviously pilot proficiency is a big thing with us, right? That continued learning and training experience. And so probably about 15 years ago, we got involved. Frankly, it started kind of with SAFE. And we started doing some proficiency training here, which morphed into EAA got involved, and they took it to a much larger scale than we could have even imagined, to the point where they now have built a dedicated facility up off of the museum and where they can utilize this sort of training year round. So obviously it gets a lot of use this week, but it's great to see how that's evolved, and obviously we love being here. If you're a pilot, you love being here, but you know it's just a great environment.
Good.
So, Josh, tell us a little bit about the history of Redbird. You started manufacturing training devices in what year?
So I think probably 2007 is when we Redbird really got rolling, and we the founding group of Redbird came to Oshkosh as sort of a proof of concept to see if the sim had any legs, if there was any interest in it, and you know. The product wasn't quite ready, but there was a lot of interest in it, and we've been every year since then, and it's really grown over the years, both our company as well as our presence at this great event.
And do you have any idea at this point, I'm sure you do, you know your data better than anyone else, how many flight schools, colleges and universities worldwide, how many devices has Redbird delivered to the community?
It's about 4,000.
Amazing.
Ballpark, plus or minus something. We're in 54 countries. Something like 3,000 customers, and so I don't think when we brought those devices up here in 2007 we would imagine that it would have grown like that. So we've been very fortunate, and part of that is because people had some sort of trust in us. I'm not sure why, but they thought we were on to something, and so it's helped motivate us. But again, we're a company of pilots building products for pilots. And I think, and frankly, those of us that started the company, we didn't have a background in aviation business, right? And I think that kind of helped us because we looked at things much different than maybe a traditional aviation company would have. And I think some of that has served us well.
Really wonderful. So you've got all sorts of things here. It looks like you're set up for some seminars. Do you have a desktop simulator? You've got the full motion simulator behind us. What can people expect when they come visit you here?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, what you pointed to here is our STEM lab. We have become very prominent in the K through 12 space, both in the traditional STEM and the career technical education, or CTE components. And so for probably about the last 6 or 7 years, we we have a STEM lab here. So our director of STEM education will actually be doing STEM classes during the show. So for all the kids and stuff out there, be here at 9 a.m. every morning. You can register for the classes during that day. If by chance they're filled up, come back the next morning. We'll get you on the list. And then obviously we'll do sales demos in one of the devices. We have we've been working with the RAF, Recreational Aviation Fellowship. So after people learn to fly, what do you do with it, right? If you're not a professional pilot, right? And so they have a great mission, and being able to be part of some of that backcountry flying is fantastic. And so we're trying to help promote that, as well as do some training for that type of flying. And that's what the Husky device here is all about, as well as thank you to Aviat for bringing the RAF Husky and parking it out front. And then we also have, we have some just devices for people to play on, but then we're also announcing a new mixed reality device that we've been working on for the past 7 or 8 months. And so we're bringing that up. There's probably a little bit of fine tuning we have to do, but hopefully by the end of the year, that'll be a commercially available product.
So what is mixed reality? I kind of live in an alternate universe, but what's mixed reality?
Okay, well, so through the use of a headset, right, we are providing what most people would consider kind of the virtual reality aspect.
Okay.
So although it's not a recorded video, it is kind of a live stream video of what is happening outside of the cockpit of the aircraft. But when you look down, you are masking so that you see the avionics in the training device. You can see your hands on the yoke, on the throttles, manipulating. Perfect. And so it's, for the technology people out there, it's if virtual reality and augmented reality had a baby, and now it's mixed reality.
Well, that's really wonderful. As a pilot, simulators have come such a long way, and one of our flight schools that I've been to has a Redbird simulator in there. And if I want to stay instrument current, now I can go in and spend a time in the simulator and not bore holes in clouds and actually log that time with an instructor, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can maintain your full instrument currency in any of our FAA-approved devices. That's the 6 approaches in 6 months, plus a hold. I always forget the hold.
Nobody likes to do a hold.
Yeah, but you do need to do that to be legal. But as long as you're within currency, you don't need an instructor. It's really useful. I personally use it to maintain my instrument currency, and it's an excellent tool for that. You can do, you can shoot approaches all over the country, and you can do things that you really wouldn't want to do in the real airplane and practice those maneuvers.
Okay. Neat. I just discovered this, Lisa, you know all about it, but I just realized that there's something called SimVenture that happens before AirVenture. What's that all about?
Yeah, so SimVenture is actually, the flight sim community has got together to put on an actual virtual event where they fly into Oshkosh, and they do it before the show. They use live ATCs so that it's literally the real experience. There's a combination of people that are planning to come to Oshkosh, and again, it's a perfect case for flight simulation and the proficiency that it advances for pilots, because they'll fly the approach before they actually come here when the airspace is crowded with thousands of airplanes coming into Oshkosh, and they can do it in advance. And for some people that don't make it to Oshkosh, it's kind of their way of experiencing a landing in Oshkosh without actually having to be here.
That's the beauty of simulators, that they make us all better pilots, and that's a great example. Flying into Oshkosh, for those of you that have flown here, it's like a 26 or a 30-page NOTAM. So to be able to take your time and fly that approach and get your airspeeds right and do it before you actually have the stress of doing it with airplanes in front of you and behind you. I mean, that's really
one of the real advantages, because I flew in here and I practiced on our sims, is not only do you get to go through it, but you can actually rewind and do the parts over and over where there may be some confusion or there may be some difficulty.
I wish I could do that in my Cardinal.
Yeah.
Rewind. I do have a replay button on my Garmin that I can hear the audio, but it doesn't turn back the clock. So, well, that's interesting. Well, we hope you all have a wonderful show today. I think we've got a segment we're going to run, don't we?
That is correct. Yeah, we've got some features that we'll be running throughout the week. This one today on Redbird is coming up shortly. In a minute. We're not quite there yet.
Oh, okay.
But talking about advocacy, Flying had started a couple of years ago when we redesigned the magazine to bring simulation content into the magazine for a reason. We were a little bit nervous when we first started doing that because we thought, will pilots react to this in a negative way because they might say, hey, I fly a real airplane, not a simulator. But the language about flight simulation has really changed, and we have gotten more letters of support from readers in our audience because they have learned the value of practicing takeoff and landings and the role that flight simulation can play in making them a better, safer pilot.
I think one of the great things that flying has done, some of your editorial stuff, like Meg is excellent. She's not only a good writer, but she brings a wealth of experience on the simulator side. She's an active flight instructor that uses sims with students, and her features on sims, I think there's a lot of value in those for individual pilots too, that are not coming at it from the flight school or the flight instructor perspective, but how to use a sim to just be a better, safer pilot overall. So I'm biased, obviously, but I think it's really excellent that y'all have brought that kind of content into the magazine and into the digital space.
Meg Odluski has, as a resident flight instructor and editor of flying, has done a great job of bringing that conversation forward for sure. And actually, we have a segment this week we're going to be shooting with Meg and Amy Wilder, our editor-in-chief for Plane and Pilot magazine, right, in one of your simulators, talking about learning to fly using flight simulation right, as a training tool. So we'll be able to give people the run through on what that actually looks like a little bit later in the week.
I will add another to Todd's point about we have the PPC, the Pilot Proficiency Center, our booth obviously, and then over at the Learn to Fly Center in Four Corners, we're running a flight school. We have 2 large sims and 4 desktop BATDs that manned by instructors, and so folks can go in and get a lesson that will be logged in their logbook, could be used towards filling out an 8710 and getting a private pilot certificate. So, and that'll be open I think Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5. So that there's a lot of opportunity here to not just play with the sim, but really get some training in it as well.
Awesome. So Todd, going back to one of the things we talked about a little bit earlier, in the United States, obviously workforce development is a very popular conversation, right? And STEM clubs throughout the United States, of course, high schools are starting to invest in flight simulation to help build the pilot pipeline and to attract people into the industry. You talked about mixed use. Can you tell me that again? The mixed...
Oh, the mixed reality.
Mixed reality, yeah. So a lot of kids today are dying to fly drones, right? They love it. They're hot on the Christmas list every year, and they have experience with first-person view goggles. How does that help them transition into flight training? Is that something that would be like the future of flight training, right? Because they're flying with first-person view goggles, eventually the mixed-use reality, or is that a different aspect of your business?
Well,
unrelated.
We see that there's going to be just a technology adoption, we see that there's going to be a technology adoption with these sorts of mixed reality devices. I think over time we'll figure out how well it's adopted, but there is a tremendous interest. Now, we are very large in that K-12 market, and I know there's a huge interest there, right? Because you've got people, they're using these devices at home, kids are, and so it becomes kind of a natural extension into the training environment in that. What'll be interesting is to see what sort of adoption occurs in the traditional flight training market. I will tell you, we delivered a large number of training devices to the Air Force last year. We did not provide the mixed reality. There was a third party, however, that integrated into our sim. So you're seeing a lot of this in military training now. I'm going to guess there's probably a little bit of it potentially in some of the professional pilot aspects, but with the airlines. But we'll see if how this goes moving forward.
So education is really important, and we want to get people excited about aviation as early as possible. So for all the educators listening, how do they engage Redbird?
www.redbirdflight.com.
Okay.
That's a good way. Give us a call. Somebody will always answer the phone. Well, Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 6, but reach out.
Okay.
We'll be glad to talk through whether or not we can help you augment your training.
Okay. Awesome, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Well, we're grateful for the partnership with Redbird this year to bring Oshkosh to the masses. We can't thank you guys enough. We're excited
pleasure.
for the week ahead. We're going to be rolling to a feature on Redbird here shortly, and we'll be back with you in just a few seconds.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Like all good startups do, we started in a barn.
At the time, I was training with a company that was paying in the tens of millions for simulators. The features were just simply not there. The visuals weren't great. The fidelity wasn't there. So I came back to some of my old Dell buddies. I said, you know, we can do this for like 1/10 of the cost. And that was how we began.
I had gone and got my pilot's license, got married, bought a house, had a kid, ran out of money, had to hang up my wings. This opportunity came along to say, why don't we build some sims? This would be a really good way to stay connected with aviation, and we could fly. And so we all started working on a sim in a barn here in Austin.
And for the next 2 years, we worked in the workshop in my stables at our ranch to develop a couple of the key technologies.
For about a year, we piddled and we had trial and error, and we ultimately came up with what we thought was a viable product. And in order to test that, we decided to take it to the largest air show in the country, Oshkosh.
And we took the first simulator to Oshkosh in 2007. Didn't work worth a damn, but we wanted to see if there really was a market, because we knew we could get it to where we needed to get it. And we came back with so many orders. We knew we were in big trouble, because now we've got to fill these orders with simulators that work.
We thought we were creating hardware and software solutions to an underserved market. In reality, I think it's a little bigger than that I think we actually helped create a market.
We said we were going to take like 2 months off or a month off, you know, and nobody was going to think about it or talk about it. We were going to lock the workshop up and everyone's going to rest after Oshkosh. And I think that lasted about 3 days.
And as soon as we got back, we opened up our first shop and began the process of beginning to build this in a way that was repeatable and something that we would be proud to deliver to flight schools.
The aha moment for us was really about understanding why is it that simulation is adopted by airlines and military and used so well across the board, but GA kind of looked at it and said, well, yeah, it's good for instrument training, but that's about it.
And it just didn't make sense to us that that technology was only available to advanced pilots. Could we build a flight simulator that was realistic enough at a price point that would be attractive to a flight school or a university to teach pilots their basic PPL and instrument rating skills?
That's what it was about. It was about, let's build a device that changes that value proposition, that makes it a no-brainer to adopt it even at the earliest level of a pilot's life cycle. What needs to be true about this device, you know? Wraparound visuals was a must because we needed it to be able to be used in visual training. We needed it to be interchangeable so that it could be used for a number of aircraft in your fleet. It had to have motion. It had to be broken down and walked through a 36-inch doorway by 2 people. It had to be installed in a small portable building at a municipal airport, and it had to run off house power.
The funny thing about our origin was we always saw Redbird as strictly an R&D company, and our vision was to let somebody else do the manufacturing. We couldn't find anybody that could build to our standards. How we ended up here today at this factory behind me, and the engineering crew and the marketing crews and support crews we've got, we could not have imagined back then.
We started Redbird with one product. Today we build over 35 different individual products and manage thousands of different parts throughout the warehouse.
We went from being a simulator designer builder to a training solutions company with curriculums and all kind of specialty software that makes this kind of training possible.
There's a lot of changes coming in aviation. You still have operators that may be doing different things, but we still need to be able to effectively train them in ways to be safe at the tasks that they're doing. And as we look 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we are pushing to help create the training aids and the training tools that are necessary to teach the next generation of pilots. It's really been an extremely rewarding experience for us because I feel like we're able to do what we really want to do, which is not necessarily just build this widget or build that device. It's move the needle. It's encourage more people to fly, get more pilots into aviation, make it more accessible. I think that the work that we've been able to do on that front is probably the thing I'm the most proud of.
I look at this sometimes and I'm stunned by what this company's been able to accomplish. I wouldn't want to begin to tell you where I think we're going to be in 10 years, but we're going to be the guys.
All right, welcome back everybody to Oshkosh Live. Thanks for joining us here again. And on stage, we've got some friends of ours from Middle Tennessee State University. And it's really wonderful to have these guests because we're also a Tennessee-based company, so we're kind of neighbors here in the volunteer state. But Middle Tennessee State University is one of the largest aviation universities in the country. So it makes perfect sense here at AirVenture to bring on the people that know aviation best and are training the next generation of pilots, but it's even more than just pilots. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I guess our Dr. Mark Burns, the Provost and Chief Academic Officer, and a good close personal friend of mine. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Oh my gosh! Now we've done it.
Andrew Rothman, he's the Vice President of Marketing and Communication. So, tell us a little bit about MTSU for people that don't know. How did MTSU become this powerhouse, this juggernaut now in aviation?
Well, a little bit about the university first. We are what our name implies, Middle Tennessee State University. We were in the middle of Tennessee, 25 miles southeast of Nashville. And for a major comprehensive university, we are one of the, we offer something for everybody. We were talking about 300 college degree options, but we've got this kind of weird and wonderful thing about MTSU. We've got a few of these signature programs that you kind of look at us and you're just going to go like, you have that, and one of those things is aerospace. And Mark, I mean, it's your biggest major, right?
Right. We've got about 1,200 majors in our aerospace department.
1,200 just in aerospace.
1,200 just in aerospace. So our total population is 20,000, more or less. So it would require math, but it's more than it's more than 5% of our total student population are aerospace students. So we're really excited about that, proud of that. We, of course, as a university, offer almost anything you would want. And so we have this whole range of options for students. But as Andrew talked about, we have a handful that will draw students from around the country and really around the world. And aerospace is one of those. So our presence here at EAA has been a really important thing for us, and we just are happy to be here.
Okay. So one of your natural questions is, how come MTSU in flight school, right? World War II. World War II. We're celebrating our 81st year as a flight training school, and an Army Air Corps base nearby, they were looking for a source of pilots, and they tapped us on the shoulder and said, listen, we need you guys to start focus on flight training. So from World War II is really where we began to grow. You and I have Civil Air Patrol in common. We'll probably talk about it in a second, but after the war, we realized we had a good thing going, and we started to invest continuously in it, and really we've seen the payoff of that investment in becoming, like you said, one of the largest public university flight training programs in the nation.
So that's really interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit about pilot recruitment and pilot training in another segment with Airline Geeks, but one of the things I'm intrigued about is all these majors for non-flying aviation careers. What are some of those, especially your signature? What are those signature ones?
If you're talking about in aerospace, I've got to defer again to the provost. He knows our majors and concentrations.
I'm looking for journalism people. We need journalists to fly.
Well, we've got a great journalism school as well. I couldn't actually hear the question. So
what are some other majors besides aerospace?
Yeah, oh goodness. Well, really, we've got 10 academic colleges. So our big majors, psychology is big. Business administration is big, nursing is big. We've got just a whole range of programs. Ones that will draw students from some of our signature programs are College of Media and Entertainment, where journalism is housed, also as audio production, video and film production, recording industry management. We're just down the road from Nashville, and so that's a really attractive program in which we place students in positions in and around Music Row. But we have, outside of engineering, we've got pretty much anything.
So those quirky signature programs are talking about recording industry. We've got former alums and former students that every year are vying for the Grammy. So much so the provost and I and our president, Dr. Sidney A. McPhee, we go to the Grammys every year and we celebrate their successes, and now we're starting to see our students on the stage winning awards. Last year, 2 of our students received Grammys, so we were really excited about that. We've got concrete and construction management, which is just one of these, what the heck is concrete and construction management? One of 9 programs in the United States supported by the industry in concrete management, because they wanted more executives to be able to work in that field, to be managers and project designers. So mechatronics, we really, that process of using robotics to build things and manufacture things. We're one of the few that have this level 3 certification from Siemens. Manufacturing, which is huge. So yeah, and just all these amazing kind of things, when you kind of look at us and just go, what the heck is that doing there? And
we really take pride in traditional academic subjects in which you get a solid grounding in how to think and write and speak. But we also have very much hands-on degrees, like aerospace, that lead to a specific job path.
And that's
a lot of the ones that Andrew mentioned.
That's what I'm interested in. So a lot of people are interested in aviation and aerospace. Not everybody wants to be a pilot. Some pilots even have a fear of heights, or some people can't get to medical. So what else could I do? You have meteorology. We talked about journalism. How about airport management? What are some of the
So of those 1,200 majors I mentioned, about 900 of those are in the pro pilot concentration. But we have unmanned aerial systems or drones. We've got about 100 students there. We have mechanics, aerospace mechanics. We've got the more sciencey degree, aerospace technology. And we have people working in all elements of the industry, not just pilots. We have a lot of pilots, but there's all sorts of other ways that you can use in aerospace.
So a lot facility of management, running airports.
Well, let's talk about airports and expansion. First, how big's your fleet? What do you fly?
We fly DA-40s, made by Diamond. That's a principal part of our fleet. We've got about 50 aircraft. The provost, the president have got us on track to get 66 within the next couple of years. So that growing fleet has been both a challenge and an opportunity, because it's requiring more space. We can get into that for a second. But so principally DA-40s, beautiful glass canopy, you've seen those. And then Piper Seminoles for the tail dragging and everything like that. So we got the double engine opportunities as well. A few other aircraft in there as well.
So we've talked a lot about growth. We talked about fleets and airports, and you've got something you're doing in Shelbyville, right? Another expansion going on?
We do indeed.
Well, so one of the side effects of growth has been we're running out of space in Murfreesboro, primarily because of all the students who need flight training hours. A lot of planes up in the sky. We need more space on the ground. Murfreesboro Airport, where we've been housed since the 50s, things just got too tight there. So we're moving 20-ish miles down the road to Shelbyville, and are really excited about the opportunities that that's going to give our students to both get in their flight training down the road, maybe some of their non-aerospace courses in addition, but it's going to give us the elbow room that we need to grow and make sure that our students can get through in an expeditious manner.
I think we've got a video of that, but so you're building new hangars and maintenance facilities to take care of the fleet. Are you moving the entire fleet, or are you going to keep some in Murfreesboro?
There'll be a transition period. Ultimately, all of the flight training will be in Shelbyville, and ultimately the other elements, the mechanics, that'll be in Murfreesboro for a while as we get everything built out.
Flight dispatch will remain on our campus for some time, but principal job number one is all these aircrafts. I mean, we've really enjoyed being a part of the Murfreesboro Municipal Airport. That's where we're their number one tenant. I think we comprise 70% of their operations. We're really ingrained in that, but we are crowding out everybody else. So having this facility just to put our planes in a spot where we can all get to it is really going to be job one. Once the provost gets all of our planes to Shelbyville, that's when I think the rest of those transition. We'll of course still have a presence on our campus for that classroom work.
Oh, it sounds like a wonderful partnership, but you have other partnerships too, right? You train all these pilots. Where do they go?
Well, we're really proud of our Delta Propel program. We were one of the first 8 universities to sign aboard with Delta Propel, which, as you know, they go into our university, find find what they would consider to be the top guns and lay claim to them as early as the end of their sophomore year, work with us on their training, and if they successfully complete the requirements, they're first in line to get jobs. It cuts time from them to get from the classroom to the cockpit of a main Delta aircraft. The very first graduate of Propel is an MTSU grad. We're very, very happy about that. But then we've got Southwest, right?
Southwest, right, yeah. So, yeah, it's a similar program to Propel.
Welcome to AirVenture.
Hey, live television and aircraft.
Right.
What a great combination. We should be
one of our graduates.
That could be buzzing you. They've heard you're here.
So Dr. McPhee will talk about this, and I think Andrew and I both experienced it. We wear a lot of MTSU gear out and about around the country and around the world, and it's amazing the number of times if I have MT on, a pilot or a co-pilot or a flight engineer, whatever, or someone else working in the airport was, oh, MTSU. They either know it, or a lot of them are actually our grads. And so it's really gratifying to see our students, our graduates, who we've trained in Murfreesboro, soon to be Shelbyville also, out in the industry doing great stuff.
What's really so cool about that story is telling Dr. McPhee, our president, has been president for almost 25 years. So we've got 4,000 alums of the aerospace program, and he travels because of his job a lot, and he wears the gear like Mark says. I mean, almost invariably, and I've been on a lot of trips with him, somebody comes across and says, I have a picture of you handing me my degree. And Dr. McPhee goes, what year? Oh, 2004. And Dr. McPhee goes, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for a long time.
Stop asking that question.
But it's really just the reach of our aerospace alumni program. That's why EAA is so important to us.
They travel in pairs.
They want us out here. They want us out here, and we so midweek out here we celebrate. We have a huge alumni barbecue, and we invite all of our friends and partners to come celebrate. And we'll be talking a lot about Shelbyville.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I recently saw, in fact, you probably sent it to me. It was a picture of an F-15 refueling in flight, and the pilot had put an MTSU logo on top of the panel. So I think he got some heat for that, but it was worth it, right?
I believe that's the same F-15 pilot who we are going to recognize and honor on Wednesday. He's Air Force Colonel Aaron Reed, Commander, United States Air Force Civil Air Patrol, and he's one of our graduates. As you well know, ladies and gentlemen, the former Chief of Marketing and Strategic Communications for Civil Air Patrol, my former boss in CAP. Colonel Reed is in charge of the Air Force, basically organizational unit that makes sure that Civil Air Patrol, as an auxiliary of the Air Force, does what it needs to do.
And it's a great organization too. So for all the pilots that come out of MTSU and they want to do something with the skills they have, do some public benefit flying, they can join CAP, and especially the ones that come out as CFIs, they can, Civil Air Patrol needs CFIs to keep our pilots trained as well. So
we've had that partnership now for 10 years, and we are also the host every year of the National Cadet Engineering Technology Academy. We're really proud of that, and that's our College of Basic and Applied Sciences, which is aerospace. So aerospace is a big piece of that.
Okay. How many hours?
That is cool, right?
We're all sitting here with smiles on our
It's
faces.
cool. I mean, that's a cool thing. I mean,
the problem is I can't have an earplug in. In fact, our next segment's on airports too. So real quickly, just how many hours does a student graduate with, and what ratings do they have when they
Man, I'm going to look to the provost who's probably going to phone a friend.
Well,
but they're ATPs.
Yeah. So I'm a political scientist by training, so much of what you're saying is a foreign language to me. All that information is on our website, mtsu.edu. Andrew mentioned Propel, I think, and how participation in that cuts the number of hours students have to get to actually get certified to fly.
Fast track,
And Destination 225 with Southwest is kind of following along that way too. The biggest thing that we tout, of course, you would expect us to do this, is our pilots graduate with a true university degree, and we'd like to think that prepares them not only to fly the aircraft, but also careers that could go beyond their time in the air.
Yeah, you never know where life is going to take you.
That's right.
And so to have a 4-year college degree in addition to all the flight certification, we think is really important.
It is. It's always good to have something to fall back on, and aviation is something you can do for your lifetime. And even if you don't do it as a career, you can still be leveraging your CFI ticket and bringing other people along. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, wonderful. I really want to thank you for your time, and thank you for everything you do for the industry. It's really exciting to have the personal relationship we do have, because I've learned so much more about the university. And
hey, what do they say in Vegas? We'll be here all week.
We're here all week.
Tip your server. We really enjoy the partnership with Flying, all this great team with everything that's making this show and this thing happen. And looking forward to working with you all week.
So what other shows do you go to when you're recruiting people? What other shows does the university attend?
You mean aviation? We have a pretty good presence at Sun and Fun.
Okay.
We do that. We're one of the primary sponsors of the Great Tennessee Air Show, which is every other year. And we've been fortunate enough that some of the premier flight teams, the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds, grace us with their presence in that. And our aerospace, we've got planes. We fly. We go anywhere. That's the great thing about having a fleet of 50 aircraft. You invite us. Hey, you invite us. We might show up.
Mm-hmm.
So
good. I'd love to know how many gallons of fuel you burn a year. I'm hoping you're not paying pump prices for your fuel.
What do they say in marketing? Don't answer questions you don't know. But I bet you it's a big number.
Yeah, but that's great for the Shelbyville Airport, right? You're going to be a big economic boom, so you're a huge economic boom.
Well, right. We have calculated in the past the economic value of our aerospace program, and that's part of the thing that we talked about with Shelbyville is that, look, not only does it bring greater visibility of the program to the city, but you're going to get some tremendous economic benefits out of students buying lunch, but us buying fuel, all the financial arrangements that we have to be there. So it's a major economic engine.
All right. With your move to Shelbyville, does that require some airport improvements, runway extensions?
Yes, and we're very fortunate. In the video clip you ran, you saw our Governor Bill Lee, our delegation in the Tennessee General Assembly representing our area. We were able to secure an initial allocation of about $65 million and then some additional dollars in just this last session for the Shelbyville Airport. So the great thing about this investment is that the Shelbyville Airport is going to be getting some amazing state-of-the-art renovations and enhancements. They probably taken them years to get this. It's totally accelerating now. But we're really grateful that we were able to capture the imagination of our legislative leadership and say, hey, we've got something you really need to invest in because we're here. Look at us. We're talking to Randy on live television. This is great.
Well, and I was thinking about the report to Congress we did for Civil Air Patrol, and we do a wing report for each state. And I was wondering, does MTSU show up in the report we do for local legislators?
We do. The provost, the president, and others. We have to make our case, right, Mark? We are constantly we talk about singing for our supper. We sing for our supper every year.
Mm-hmm. We do. And the state has always been pretty tough about awarding money, but these days you really got to show the economic benefit and most importantly the benefit to students and how it's going to help them thrive in their career. And it's an easy case to make in aerospace.
Well, tell me a little bit about outreach. So we had the team on here from Redbird Flight, and they were talking about their STEM programs. You and I know a lot about Civil Air Patrol STEM programs that starts at like kindergarten level, right? What kind of outreach do you have before students actually sign up to join your school for 4 years?
Well, we have all sorts of recruitment and educational programs that we do for all students, not just for potential aerospace students, but we go around 14-ish.
That's 4 states, 14 cities. Yeah. We have a bus tour we call the True Blue Tour. Here we go. Yeah, we the provost, the president, myself, a few others, and we go on the road. Particularly, aerospace is one of the draws. They come out there. The great thing about coming to EAA is we bring our students with us.
I've seen
and I hope as the week progresses, we'll be able to see them on your air. They're our best ambassadors, and they really do a really good job of not only connecting with the student in the cockpit, but we send them to high schools. We'll go to pretty much any place on the drop of a hat. we became active in Civil Air Patrol because we got a call from a mom saying, hey, we want you to come out and talk to our cadets about aerospace program. And we recognized the provost, the president, and I just said, well, why aren't we doing more of this? And that program, we're also active with other youth groups as well. And aerospace is a draw. I mean, those planes, those DA-40s are beautiful.
They are. It's an easy sell, I got to tell you. Compared to, well, I won't name some of our programs that are harder sells, but in a sense, every time a plane flies by,
I want to do that.
They're distinctive. The Diamonds are a distinctive looking plane.
And are those the diesel engine?
What's that?
Are they the diesel engine on the Twins?
Oh Lord, you're going to be asking. I get a shout out to a friend. Hey Jared, we diesel?
Jared's gone.
Yes.
It's on the website.
That's right.
You mentioned True Blue, and that made me think you're also a broadcast guy. You have your own television studio.
Yes.
And what do you broadcast?
Well, a lot of universities have this. We have what's called a public educational governmental channel, called a PEG channel. And True Blue TV is what we call it. There we go. We do primarily campus broadcasting. All of our events and activities, educational programming from our colleges, our special events. But we also have a nice exchange with other universities with similar programming. A lot of the videos that you see are done by our production team, which is very similar to yours and this setup you have. We also do some public affairs shows that we distribute on a network of these channels. Out of the Blue is the show I host, which is about MTSU. A lot of blue in all of our titles, by the way. That's not an accident.
Right? We love that.
That's not an accident. So, these days, just like what you guys are doing at Redbird, you've got to think through how can we tell our message on different platforms. All the time we're looking at those things. And aerospace, why I'm really proud about them coming out to this is our 7th year. It is really a concerted presence out here. We've been out here for years, but really kind of more just showing up. But having a tent, matter of fact, we're right next to Flying Magazine.
I saw you.
What we love about Flying Magazine, we're all right behind the control tower, right on the flight line, and we're able to kind of get up there. But having that rally point for our alums has really just been a great opportunity. So my job here is I'm going to be capturing video of our work with our alumni and out here having fun, and that becomes part of our recruitment materials, and we show those on the television station and everywhere.
All right, well, thank you. So here on Showgrounds, where do people find you? I know you can probably walk towards the control tower.
Walk towards the control tower, flight line, we're right behind a big blue tent.
Okay. And you've got students there, and you've got information about...
Most important, we got a DA-40 sitting right there, and Diamond Aircraft is kind enough to host one of our DA-40s as well. So we climb in the aircraft, we'll take you around. What we love is when alums bring their kids out, and others bring their kids out, and they're climbing through the aircraft. Yep. Here I am, and they can see themselves in that environment.
So we have students and faculty members there manning the tent.
Okay.
That's right.
And very happy to talk about the program, the university.
Yeah, while we're off hobnobbing with you, we've got people doing real work back at that tent, talking to people.
Okay, so for anybody listening, joining us online, if you're grandparents, parents, and you're thinking about maybe where to steer your kids in a career, sounds like MTSU's got something for everybody if your heart is in the sky.
It is. Yep. It is. We're really proud that we offer, like we said, a great aerospace program, but so many other wonderful programs. Come to a university like MTSU and you can find your blue. You know what you're going to do.
You got it in there again, didn't you? Find your blue.
Find your blue.
Blue skies. Well, I want to thank y'all for coming along. It's been a pleasure. I'm sorry if this went a little bit long, but I think we all get excited about talking about aviation.
Us talking about MTSU and aerospace? Hey, do you have another hour? We can be here all day.
We'll have you back. Pace yourselves. We're going to be here all week, folks. So.
All right.
All right. Thanks for your time. Andrew, appreciate all your help.
Randy, thank you
for coming by. And then next we've got another segment, ironically, with all the airplane noise in the air. We're going to show you a segment about another airport that's right here in the same airspace as Whitman Regional Field. And I bet some people don't know about this wonderful little vintage grass strip that's nearby. So check it out.
All right.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dick Lipinski from the EAA staff, and right now you're at Pioneer Airport. It's part of the EAA Aviation Museum Complex, and it was started in the 1980s by Paul Poberezny, who wanted to recreate a 1920s, 1930s style aerodrome, complete with the round top hangars and with a grass airstrip. And that's what it's become. It's a seasonal operation, runs from May through September, and people can not only see about 40 vintage aircraft here in the hangars, but they can also take an airplane ride. You can get an open cockpit biplane or get a free Young Eagles flights for kids between ages 8 and 17. Open every day throughout the summer. It's just one little adjunct that's an added bonus when you come and visit the EAA Museum. Right now we're inside the Whitman hangar, which honors and recognizes Steve Whitman, who was the manager at Whitman Regional Airport, as it's now called here in Oshkosh, the home of AirVenture, but was also one of the leading aircraft designers and builders and air racers of the 1920s and 30s. You have to remember, when air racing was at its peak in the 1930s, it was like NASCAR or IndyCar is today. All the big oil companies sponsored teams. And Steve Whitman was an independent person on these things. He had a small crew, but he designed the airplane, built the airplane, serviced the airplane, and piloted the airplane in the races. So what we have here are a number of Steve's designs, ranging from his very earliest one, which used a Harley-Davidson engine, all the way up to some of those that were really cross-country airplanes, and some that are still built today, such as the Whitman Tailwind. So it really is a look back at Oshkosh history, a look at aviation history, and a really fun angle on what one individual can do when he pursues the freedom of flight. Here at Pioneer Airport, we've got between 30 and 40 additional classic aircraft, vintage aircraft on display, and some that went on to become fairly well known in aviation history, such as the Aranca right behind me. Aranca made a number of models, and this year we're celebrating the Aranca anniversary at AirVenture, so you're going to see more than 100 of them coming out this year and being parked along the flight line. But it had its beginnings on humble origins, such as the one you see behind me. What we're looking at right now is the Swallow biplane. It's from 1927, and as far as we know, it is the oldest airplane that you can actually purchase a ride in any place in America. This has a very interesting history. It was first purchased by a woman back in the 1920s because a flight instructor, no place in her area, would teach her how to fly because she was a woman. So she went out and bought her own airplane and learned to fly in this particular airplane. The Swallows are also well known because they were some of the first airmail airplanes that were used in America, and this one is painted to salute those early airmail routes, which were very dangerous for those young pilots, most of them who came from World War I. But the Swallow is just one of the 30 to 40 airplanes you'll see here at Pioneer Airport, the seasonal operation that's part of the EAA Aviation Museum here in Oshkosh. And at Pioneer Airport, it's a great place to go back into aviation history. Although this becomes the Kid Venture area during AirVenture, boy, come out the rest of the season between May and September, see all the airplanes on display, maybe get the wind in your hair and the bugs in your teeth yourself, and going for an open cockpit biplane ride. You'll come back smiling, I guarantee it.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us again here at Oshkosh Live. So that was a wonderful segment about Pioneer Airport here at AirVenture on Whitman Field. You're going to see more of that throughout the week. We thought, everybody that comes to AirVenture, there's so much to see and do, but there's a world-class museum right here on the field, the EAA Aviation Museum. If you haven't been there, you need to go there. But for people watching online, what we've done is we've taped a couple different segments, and we're going to drip those in throughout the week. Similar to Dick Lipinski, actually, that you just saw in the video, helped us out do some really cool segments. So you'll see more of those throughout the week. But we're back now, and we're talking to Redbird again. I forgot your name. Gregoire, right? Yeah, Charlie Gregoire, yeah. Redbird. Sorry about that, Charlie.
That's all right.
So what we want to do is talk a little bit more about some of the technology, because you've got this great flight simulator technology that kind of goes from desktop, laptop, all the way on up to the full motion simulator. So maybe why don't you walk us through at the very beginning what the application is, who it's kind of suited for, sure. Home use, professional use, pilots, hobbyists, whatever else, and just kind of walk us up through and tell us what's new and exciting about all those.
Sure. We really actually we'd take a step down from a full desktop simulator, and we'd start with a home peripheral line. We have a line of home peripheral devices that we call Alloy. These are yokes and throttle quadrants, rudder pedals that home sim enthusiasts or somebody building a rig for their house can buy and implement. or integrate into their home rigs.
Do they have force feedback on the rudder?
They don't. No, there's no force feedback on these devices yet.
Okay.
But it's maybe coming.
Yeah.
They're built out of they're all metal construction. That was sort of the reason for the alloy moniker, and the idea with those devices is to try to make them very, very highly realistic. So for instance, you're not going to find a more realistic feeling and looking yoke for your typical single-engine piston aircraft than what's in the YK1. The TH1 uses real, actual aircraft vernier controls. So if you're looking for that kind of hyper-realism, especially in the training in a training aircraft, those are second to none. Those devices are second to none.
And so, what powers that? If I'm flying a G1000 or steam gauges, can I change what I'm looking at?
Yeah. So in that case, it whatever you decide you want to build, right? Home builders will either run something like X-Plane or Microsoft Flight Simulator, and these peripherals, these controllers are compatible with that. You take a step up and you start looking at some of our larger devices, and actually that's kind of where everything, the larger devices are where that technology started that we kind of bring down and repackage, to make available for home users. So those controls are the same controls we use in our AATDs or our motion devices. But not to get too far ahead, you asked the desktop devices. We have a line of desktop devices called the J and the J Velocity. They're really built as an all-in-one simulator device. Really, application for these individual pilots, home pilots, but there's a lot of K-12 and education organizations and museums that are putting these in to build sim labs for pilots at that level for really early pilot life cycle stuff, kind of acquisition, get people into it. As you progress up, then we have a TD and a TD2, these are the first FAA certified or approved devices. They're basic aviation training devices, and then you step up into our AATD line, everything from open cockpit LD to single occupant motion devices like the MX2 that the RAF sim here is built off of, to dual occupant, single and dual control. So there's really a whole lot of options to meet what your training need is. So if you're a university, if you're an individual flight school, flight training operation, or you're a home user or a high school or even a middle school, we have solutions for you across the run the gamut. Yeah.
So as far as computing speed on some of the desktop things, will a typical laptop have the processing speed to run that seamlessly, or do they need something special?
So yeah, if you're building something for home, you're probably going to want a customized rig, something that's got a better GPU in it. Your typical kind of laptop that you'd be using, you can run some of this stuff, but you're going to be better suited buying something that's kind of custom built for gaming.
And you have those recommendations for people?
We do. We do for home builders. We do. We also, obviously we build our own devices and our own computers to run our fully integrated devices. So.
Well, something really interesting here is a shameless plug for Flying Magazine. We have one of our contributors, Sean Siff, is actually writing a 2-part series on building your home simulator, right?
Yeah.
So figuring out what your mission, what it is we want to accomplish, and he'll tell you, the best computer to buy, the best monitor, because there's lots of differences I never thought about when I bought my first Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I'd bank 30 degrees and it would stop and reload and stop. That's not the experience you see here. So
that's quite a bit different. I actually started my sim life when I was a kid on the Tandy 1000. The simulator was Chuck Yeager's Flight Simulator, and it's like it was like 2 colors, and but.
Did you donate that to the Smithsonian for historic value?
It probably should be there. Yeah, the technology has come a long, long way, and I would say, it's almost unrecognizable. But even from the early days of those kind of computer-based simulators, it was really clear that there's some really good learning that can happen there, even if it's not an approved device, a fully approved device. If you're interested in aviation and interested in learning aviation, really, there's no reason you shouldn't be, using something at some level. If you're not everybody's going to build their own devices or want to do that. Obviously, that's why we have solutions like the J Velocity, the TD, allow for pilots to kind of integrate this stuff without having to build their own. And other people, honestly, like me, like to build our own things. You know, like get the latest video card. Build it. So we try to have solutions for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I do see solutions popping up more and more places. You know, I go through a lot of FBOs, and it's becoming more and more common to see even the full motion simulators at like smaller flight schools and private schools.
Yeah. When we started in 2007 building these simulators, and I will say that we have seen the market come a long, long way as far as adopting the use of this kind of technology at the very early end of the pilot's life cycle, right? Okay. At our heart, we are a training company. We build simulators specifically for training. There are folks that sort of skew just to the entertainment side of it.
Hobbyists.
But we want to use these devices, and we advocate for the use of these devices in training, whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pilot and you're looking for something to stay sharp and proficient on.
Okay.
So.
And you're here all week, so you want people to come by on Knapp Street. You're at Space 301, right?
Yep.
Walk towards the control tower,
Just
look
right
for the
across
Redbird
from the control
studio.
tower. Yep.
All right. Well, Charlie, thanks
Very
for
good.
coming by. Thanks for hosting us again. We really appreciate your support. Thank you. So we're getting ready to wrap up our first hour here this morning. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what we have left on tap. So right after this flying pre-flight segment, we're going to toss it over to Larry Anglisano, the Aviation Consumer Live, and that'll be fun. That'll be happening over at the Garmin display. After Larry's segment, we've got Airline Geeks has a show, and then Plane and Pilot has a show later on today. Kit Planes, AvWeb, all your favorite titles and editors from our aviation group will be here. So thanks for tuning in. Lisa, parting comments?
Randy, yeah, absolutely. So, I thought we could have a little bit of fun. I wax nostalgic every time I come to Oshkosh, and I think about what my favorite Oshkosh experiences have been. For me, it was flying in the Goodyear blimp. Right? I mean, what an incredible opportunity. We had some friends at Goodyear that said, hey, we got a seat opened up. You want to jump in and you want to come flying with us? And of course, I jumped at the opportunity. I had no idea what to expect, but wow. I mean, you're floating at 40 knots above the grounds at EAA Oshkosh. You can see the entire show. I learned on that flight experience that it was the only aircraft that makes a full throttle landing, I believe. If that's not, I'm pretty sure that's true.
You'd have to, naval aviators might want to say, we land with full power.
Yeah, right. So it's like full power. They point the nose. I mean, you've got a giant dirigible that has to go against any kind of light wind of, and you point the nose to the ground, and you see these guys running up with sandbags, right? And then you see the group that runs up and grabs the tethers, and they pull the craft to the ground, and they anchor it so that it doesn't float away, and then you pop out. But man, what an incredible experience. 500 feet above the ground here at Oshkosh, just floating, watching it all take place. It was pretty amazing.
I'd like to see the landing checklist for that. Pull aircraft to the ground.
Grab tether. Don't let go.
That's right. That's fun. No, and there's a lot of great experiences to be had. In fact, a lot of people come to AirVenture and never make it over to the seaplane base, and we'll be over there tonight, but that's worth the visit for sure. Absolutely incredible. I know. I actually, believe it or not, this is my 30th consecutive Oshkosh. I have not made it to the seaplane base. I'm terribly ashamed. But we get to the show and it's work, and busy, and there's just not been that time to get down there and see it. But I've seen videos and photos of incredible experiences there. Have you ever camped at Oshkosh? No, not a camper. I am a camper, but I'm not interested in camping under my wing. But I applaud the people that do. That's the peak of recreational flying. Fly into Oshkosh, camp with your airplane, live in it, fly home. Absolutely incredible. Well, I've done it. Everyone should try it at least once. Okay, that's a good point. At least once. It's quite the experience. I think it's where all the fun happens. Did you do it just once? You were one and done with the camping? Yeah. Oh, all right. It's not that bad then. We're going to send it to the Aviation Consumer Star. We got to cut it. Larry Anglisano is coming up at the Garmin booth. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks.
It's happening. Okay, it's happening. Let's go. It's happening. Let's go. Get the bag. Get the bag. Get. What?
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Next.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
trashed.
Life's better when you're prepared, especially on the flight deck. Find a Redbird near you and fly like you've been there before.
Hundreds of majors, an amazing campus, faculty mentors. You can find what you're looking for at Middle Tennessee State, the University of Opportunities. We do it all.
Welcome to another edition of Aviation Consumer Live, part of Fire Crown's Airventure Live, or Oshkosh Live, here at Airventure 2024 in Wisconsin. I'm here with Kyle Ludwig at Garmin, and you guys are doing something a little bit different this year that I really commend. We got a bunch of airplanes that have been retrofitted with Garmin stuff on display, and I think it's one step better than looking at this stuff in a kiosk. So what we thought we'd do for this segment is bring a feature that we've got in Aviation Consumer called Panel Planner 101 Live, where it's a feature where readers can send in pictures of their panels, and we help kind of brainstorm the whole retrofit decision-making process. And what better than to bring that feature live here to Airventure 2024. And before we get into the retrofit buying decision and all the stuff that goes along with retrofitting a GA airplane with the latest and greatest Garmin stuff, why don't you talk a little bit about what we got going on here outside the Garmin exhibit with these retrofitted airplanes, pretty diverse group of planes, everything from a V-tail Bonanza, Cessna 140, straight-tail Cessna 182, some really nice stuff. What are we doing with these airplanes?
Great question, Larry, and thanks for having us on the segment. We're excited to be back in Oshkosh in 2024. Great crowd, great weather. Should set up to be a good week. We've really taken our Oshkosh experience here and hope to inspire folks to upgrade their airplanes with Garmin via showing them really what they can do in real airplanes, as you said. Go inside, talk to our sales folks, marketing folks, training folks as well, because that's a big piece of this too. After you decide on the avionics and start installing, how do you fly it, right? Get them, talk to them, but then also the owners of these airplanes behind us, and really show what you can do if you're a day VFR flyer, all the way to a hardcore, hard IFR weather flyer, and single engine pistons all the way up to twin engine turbine aircraft. We have solutions for you, and we can kind of help you through that process, as you said. It's not always clear cut what you should put in your airplane, how to do it, when to do it, or what capabilities you need, and we're happy to not only help you from the Garmin perspective, but let you talk to owners that have already done it themselves on their experience. That's kind of what we have going here at Oshkosh this year.
Yeah, Kyle, you know, I really like talking to you because you bring a really diverse experience to retrofit avionics. You're an airplane owner, you're a Garmin guy, but you're also an airline first officer. How does that help you educate buyers immersed in this difficult buying decision, which is an expensive one? It's time consuming. Where do you start with the advice?
Yeah, that's a great question. So thank you for the comment there. I think that because I've done the upgrade myself in my Mooney, that I have a little experience that some others might not have. I think first and foremost, we've got to understand what you already have in your airplane, right? Can we already use something that's Garmin or even a competitor? Can we use something to base that panel off of? What kind of flying do you do? What kind of aircraft is it? Hopefully not only educate you on what capabilities you can bring into your airplane, but what capabilities you would like to use, and then also the value of the airplane. We want to make sure that the setup that you install in your airplane, the panel that you eventually walk out of a Garmin dealer with, not only fits your airplane, but increases the value of it, not only for you, but maybe even the next owner. We are all stewards of these airplanes at the end of the day. And yeah, just kind of walk them through the process. It's not just the dealer, it's not just selecting the avionics, but it's also how you fly the airplane and the airplane that you're in. We kind of start to take all that to then educate on, okay, here may be a few options for you and a few base points, a few foundations, be it a navigator or a flight display, and start building off of that.
Yeah, you know, you and I had spoken before the show here, kind of talking about the buying decision, and you said something that really got me thinking. And one of the benefits of doing a major avionics upgrade is the level of safety that gets injected into these old airplanes.
Yes.
1950s technology in some of these airplanes that, you know, can increase the safety. How are we increasing safety? Give me a couple of examples. And I might try to play devil's advocate with you.
Sure.
and talk a little bit about some of the problems we face in this market. But let's talk about safety. How do we inject safety into an old airplane?
That's a great question. And I think, Larry, there are many, many ways in every install to help from the safety standpoint of the airplane. First and foremost, I think a lot of people think of redundancy, right? So vacuum system, single point of failure with the vacuum instrument itself, with the vacuum pump itself, etc. Let's talk about our G5s or GI-275s. They have backup battery capability. So you take your vacuum system out of your airplane, my Mooney, for instance, install 2 GI-275s. You now have 60 minutes of a backup battery and a second redundant instrument that fails over. Your attitude indicator may fail. It automatically reverts over to the HSI, and you still have some HSI capability in that backup instrument when it reverts to an AI. So you've got all that redundancy built into those instruments. Better than some turbine airplanes, right? They have standby instruments, but there's no failover of information to them.
Yeah.
Couple other things here, synthetic vision. If you're flying out in the mountains, we have synthetic vision on all of our flight displays except the G5. And Larry, I'll tell you, at night, you're in the weather, you can still always see the terrain. That's a big thing. And other things too. I mean, we have Smart Glide if you're going with a GTN navigator paired with one of our flight displays. We have Garmin Smart Glide, which again, in event of a loss of engine power, it can help you select the closest landable, suitable airport and tell you what altitude you're going to reach that airport at. It may even give you an option if you have a Garmin transponder to automatically squawk emergency and things like that. So from the safety side, we really do help aviate, navigate, and communicate in the airplane, and those are the three key pillars of flying, right? So we help you do all three of those with really any of our installs.
All right, so let's take the safety side of things one step further and talk about autopilots. The GFC 500 has been grand slam home run.
It has.
Lots of STCs. Price point, pretty palatable, I think, in the world of autopilots.
Yep.
But there's some capabilities in the GFC 500 that we hope are helping what may not be a very good safety record. People still losing control of airplanes.
They are.
In the weather. People are still getting disoriented, as they always have. My sense is that we don't hear a lot about some of the saves, right?
Yes.
And that's a pilot that is flying behind a GFC 500 or 600 with ESP, and they get the airplane in an unusual attitude, and the autopilot saves the airplane, but we don't hear about it, right? How much of that do you think is going on?
You know, it's a great question. Let's look at the Richard McSpadden report from AOPA, right? Used to be called the Null Report, now named for our friend Richard McSpadden. You know, look at some other features of the GFC 500 and 600 that you didn't talk about. Overspeed protection, underspeed protection. Look how many of those, go to that report and look how many accidents we're still having in the world and incidents we're still having in the world where people are getting into inadvertent IMC, right? The accident really was a day VFR accident that transitioned to day IMC because of inadvertent IMC. And then they lose control of the airplane because they do try to exit that IMC. They're not instrument rated, perhaps. And the aircraft overspeeds, maybe has an in-flight breakup. We try to help them with that, right? You have level mode, right? We can put the airplane in a level mode. Hopefully you can use the autopilot and get yourself out of IMC, for instance. But let's say you lose control of the airplane. Garmin's overspeed protection will automatically activate in the case you're coming close to an overspeed condition. Or let's say you pull the power because you become startled. We will help you in an underspeed protection case. So there are some other built-in things, I think, scenarios that folks don't generally think about when they think about installing autopilot. They think it's going to help them get home from the lake safer after a great weekend of being out on the boat at the lake and make it easier and more reliable for their family to get home on that Sunday evening and go to work on Monday. But really, we have all these other built-in capabilities to help them do that more safely.
Well, let's back up a little bit
Sure.
and talk about the planning process and how a prospective buyer may think about safety when they're thinking about which avionics to put in the airplane.
Sure.
Where do you start? And I think for a lot of buyers, it's confusing. They sort of hear about everything that you're talking about now, but they're not quite sure how it fits their airplane and how it fits into their flying patterns. How do you counsel somebody looking to add an added layer of safety to the airplane when choosing the right avionics?
Great question. I like to break it down into kind of what instruments are you using today. So is that the 6-pack in front of you? Is that your navigator and your radios, be it navcoms? Is that a current autopilot you may have? And what ADS-B solution you have? So kind of left to right on the panel. And then break it down into really the navigator in Garmin's mind is a big foundation to how you kind of build the rest of your panel out. So if you go with a GTN 650 or 750 XI navigator, that is a real powerful brain of what we do on the avionics side. And then off of that, what capabilities do you want? Do you also want engine indication system? Do you want to just replace your vacuum system, for instance? Our GI 275s in that example replace all the 6-pack, right? And a third GI 275 is an engine indication system, can replace all those old engine gauges in your airplane too and give you fuel information, for instance, more reliably. So we're not having those fuel exhaustion issues potentially. So I kind of break it down into navigator. Then what are we doing as far as flight information presented to you in where the traditional 6-pack would be? And then let's build off of that. Do you want ADS-B in to feed traffic and weather to those instruments? Let's look at the transponder. Do you fly a lot of IFR or even day VFR? We see a lot of day VFR flyers use our autopilot too, so then do we want to add an autopilot to the airplane? And then we look at things like audio panels, etc., some of those other extraneous things. And I'll tell you what, one safety piece that's often overlooked is portable power. We're all so reliant on our iPhone, our iPad, our Android device, our GDL52, or those that use Stratus out there as well. We're all reliant on that battery power for those devices. And our GSP-15 USB chargers, be it in USB-A or USB-C, it doesn't matter. You need power in your cockpit these days. We're carrying so many devices in. You need power in the cockpit to power those too. So those are just some of the ancillary things that I think until you go to a dealer and you talk through what can I do to my airplane, you're not really thinking about. But then, Larry, you start going through that process, like I said, navigator, flight displays, engine indication systems, transponders, all this stuff, and then, oh my gosh, for $300, just over, I can have USB power in the airplane, which sounds steep for a USB charger, but look how you're using those mobile devices in the cockpit. So I went through that a little quickly, but that's kind of how I think about what you can do when you upgrade the panel. And then every piece of that brings safety to what you're doing through information given to you, be it weather and traffic, terrain information, be it safer engine indications because of better fuel gauges, etc. All that kind of packs that safety punch in your upgrade.
Yeah, when you start talking about power, I start thinking about the big picture. And something that gets dropped, I think, more than it should is the health of the charging system in the airplane.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, modern avionics are efficient, very low current draw compared to some of the analog stuff that was in these airplanes when they came off the assembly line. But I'm not sure that owners pay enough attention to getting the electrical system in the aircraft up to snuff. And some of the snags I've seen is, let's talk about audio panels.
Sure.
Right. One of the a big draw to installing a new audio panel is to get good audio.
Correct.
Maybe a good set of headsets. And but so they get this new audio panel with all the new avionics, and they got charging system noise. They got alternator whine.
Correct.
Because the charging system isn't up to snuff. Step one, I think, should be underneath the cowling.
Correct.
And make sure that the electrical system and the electrical bus is at least up to snuff, up to current standards. Important?
I think it's absolutely important. So many installs today are not only, and I think this is another misunderstood point probably, is how important it is the mechanical side of the install, and it's not just behind the panel. It's not just what you see in the panel. If you're doing an engine indication system, you're running wiring into the whole cowling of your airplane, maybe two if you have a twin engine airplane. While they're already there, replace that alternator. Look at the charging system. If you're not, look at the belt. Look at everything else that we have to deal with there. As you said, from the charging side. I think you bring up a really cool point. I mentioned backup batteries earlier and what they bring from a safety aspect, but this Cessna 140 behind me, it had incandescent lights, it had an old Venturi vacuum system, it had no navigator. Today it has watt LED lights that only pull a couple amps. All of our avionics in this 140, including a wash GPS and ADS-B in and out and everything else, it only pulls 10 amps maybe, the entire system. And so it's really cool today what modern, not only avionics bring to the table, but lights and really the entire electrical package. It really changes what you can do. And then batteries are better today too. EarthX batteries and everything else that are out there in the world, they're smaller, they're lighter, they're more powerful. They pack a bigger punch. It's really impressive, just in the whole electrical side of the airplane, how that's been revolutionized in the past 10 years.
Yeah. So let's talk about planning.
Sure.
So you come to a show like Airventure, you get a good demo, you get some hands-on time on these boxes, and but you still may not be sure exactly what it is you want for a final configuration in the airplane, and into the avionics shop you go, or maybe into a few avionics shops to get a few proposals. My advice has always been to bring the airplane to the shop first. Don't try to do this remotely. Photos are good. Talking to the shop on the phone is good, but you absolutely need to bring the airplane into the shop so they can put their eyes on the panel, put their eyes underneath the panel, look at the antennas, get an idea of what it's really going to take to retrofit this airplane. But what's the most important first step in a retrofit other than getting an idea of what it is you may want to do to the airplane?
We've talked a lot today about how do you break down the panel to what avionics you may want to upgrade, what capabilities you may want, but you bring up a great point. How do you select a dealer? I look at it a few ways, Larry. The dealer is an ultimate source of great information about the avionics and the install process. At Garmin here at the show, Larry, we're happy to talk to anybody, and after the show, our regional sales managers and others on staff are always happy to talk to customers about the use cases of the avionics and kind of lead you down that path. But the dealer can ultimately assess the airplane, and how do I choose that dealer? So are they close by? Are they on your home airport? Are they at a local airport? Do you want to oversee that very expensive install process? Do you want to see your baby, like our airplanes are to most of us aircraft owners? Do you want to see it going through that process and kind of keep tabs on it? Do they have experience with your make and model? That's another big one, right? The Mooney install of the GFC 500 alone, I'll give you a great example. The roll servo's out in a wing, and it's very hard to mount. It's a very mechanical process. You're mounting servo brackets. It's not just wiring for an autopilot install, as you very well know. So do they have experience doing that in a Mooney? That could ultimately bring the price down, because if they already have their ways and means to install that autopilot bracketry and that experience, it's going to help the airplane get done just that much faster. So look at that. And then thirdly, you mentioned it earlier, go get a few different quotes. So when you're looking at dealers and you're looking at price, we always offer up, hey, figure out a few different shops that you may want to work with. Go get quotes from them and hear them out. Each dealer has a little different way of installing the avionics and what they may offer you. And so we always advise dealers, go get a few different quotes, talk to a few different dealers, and hone in not only on what avionics you want, but also hone in on your ultimate decision. The dealer is a big piece in this autopilot install. And we're very proud of our Garmin authorized dealer network and think they do great work. And all of them will bring great expertise to your install project.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that the dealer relationship has changed considerably from when I started back as a young avionics guy back in the early 90s, where, the most complicated install may have been a NavCom or a mechanical HSI installation. These days, it's a relationship. You're building a relationship with the shop. And I think you need the decision process is something you're going to have to live with for a long time, because you're coming back for software updates, you're coming back to tweak things, maybe future upgrades.
Correct.
So you're sort of buying into this relationship.
Yes, and I'll say that, a lot of people say you get a new airplane when you come out of an avionics install, right? And in many ways you do. They have opened this airplane up. Some people make an intrusive install. It's really not intrusive in a negative sense of the word. You're opening up every corner of this airplane to do installs with antennas, with mounting autopilot servos. Like I said before, you're doing things in front of the cowling, behind the cowling, in the panel, running new audio jacks, potentially the back seat, so the whole interior comes out. You open this airplane up when you do an avionics install. It's not just the panel. And so that relationship piece is key. You may actually learn something too when they take this whole interior out. You may learn more about your airplane when you see that going on as well.
Yeah.
And then, the other piece too is it's a major investment. And when you talk about the relationship side or maybe tweaking that install after you get it back, there's so many different capabilities that, sometimes you have to tweak that panel or the different settings once you get the install back after a test flight. It's just so interesting. And then we roll into the training side of the equation, right? So you pick the dealer, you get everything installed, you've already chosen your avionics, obviously, but now we need to train for it because you have this brand new airplane, and that brings the whole next step that a lot of folks don't think about. They may have thousands of hours in that airplane, but you just injected a lot of capability into it you didn't have before. And the training piece is really the last part of that equation that you have to think about.
Well, you brought it up, and it's worth running with.
Yeah.
We talk to insurance pros who tell us that they're seeing a fair number of accidents, not just after avionics work, but after maintenance work as well. And, the accidents after an annual inspection or after paint work where control surfaces are removed and put back on. But let's talk